What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today. Welcome to my channel. We got another edition of my college football playoff ranking reactions, as well as diving on into the four teams that I believe are going to make up the field for the college football playoff and diving into the rest of my New Year's Six bowl game predictions as well. So we're going to dive on into all of that. You see the rankings from yesterday, or I should say from last night in front of you. We're going to talk about that first, then we'll dive on into my predictions. Before we do all that, though, you guys know I got to say thank you for the support the channel has seen as of late. It does mean a lot to me. And if you want to continue to help show your support for the channel, you can leave a like, you can comment, you can share. Really, any way that you helped interact with the channel helps to support it, but also hitting that subscribe button, ringing the bell, and watching this video and other videos are huge ways to help me support what I do on this channel. Again, whatever you guys are able to do to help interact with the channel helps to support it, and it does mean a lot to me. But enough about that out of the way. Let's dive on in to the college football playoff rankings from yesterday. And honestly, I don't really have too many complaints about it. I did expect Georgia to leap Ohio State for that #1 spot, and that is exactly what happened. Georgia has now moved to #1, while the Ohio State Buckeyes have fallen to #2, which in 2 weeks, if the rankings stay like this, sorry, just hit my microphone there. Hopefully that wasn't too loud. If the rankings stay like this, it means the game on November 25th is going to be set up for #2 versus #3, which is going to be absolutely amazing. It's going to be a phenomenal game, and just absolutely can't wait to watch it. The thing that maybe I was a little bit surprised, okay, well, not really surprised, but maybe a little bit like, oh, okay, that's interesting, is the fact that Florida State is still sitting there at #4 and the Washington Huskies are there at #5. Now, does the USC win look as good as it did maybe in the preseason, in the early season, or when Washington went and beat USC? No, but they did just go beat a Utah team that the committee does have there at #22. Washington is going to win over Oregon, which has Oregon sitting there at #6. Florida State does have the win over the LSU Tigers, who currently sit #15, but that is by far and away their best win. They haven't really played anyone else that the committee, the way that I've seen, is even close to ranking them. Florida State does avoid North Carolina, but they will play Louisville in the ACC championship. And back to the conversation on Washington, they can boost their resume with a win over the Oregon State Beavers, as can the Oregon Ducks here. So Washington can do it this week. There's a preview prediction already up for that one on my channel. The Oregon and Oregon State, again, will be taking place next week. So a lot of very interesting things that can still happen. Also, I do have to speak on the fact of the Missouri Tigers. I think the committee got that one right. If you guys go back and watch my top 25, that's where I have Missouri. They're at #9. And for the most part, the committee and I are pretty much on the same page. I do have Ohio State and Michigan flipped at 2 and 3. I do have Louisville and Oregon State flipped at 10 and 11. I also have Ole Miss flipped with Penn State there at 12 and 13. Oklahoma and LSU flipped at 14 and 15. Now, I also could say that I think the Iowa Hawkeyes are too high. I think the Tulane Green Wave are too low. Again, but once you really get past the top 10 there. Okay, so there are probably 9 teams left in college football playoff contention. You have Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, Florida State, Washington, Oregon, Texas, Bama, and Louisville. So the top 8, skip Missouri, and then you go to Louisville. All due respect to the Missouri Tigers, one of the huge surprises in the college football season this year. I do not think, even if they get a lot of help, will be a team that's a player in the college football playoff. What the committee might have shown, though, is that Louisville may need a little bit more chaos to have happened in the previous weeks in order to get into the college football playoff. Now, does Louisville still have a path to get there? I 100% believe that they do. But the committee putting Missouri over Louisville at #9, first off, I do believe says that, hey, they got that one right? So I firmly believe that Missouri is a better team than Louisville. If the two were to play on a neutral field tomorrow, who would I favor? I would favor the Missouri Tigers. So a big reason why I believe they are above the Louisville Cardinals there. But also for the fact that the Cardinals don't really have the greatest resume. Now, again, that all can take a huge boost. You have a chance to beat a Miami team that's going to a bowl game, and then you have a chance to beat Kentucky this next week. And obviously, if you win that game in the ACC Championship against Florida State, you make your case pretty strong there as why you should be a team that's allowed to go to the college football playoff. But Louisville definitely is going to need a lot of help to be able to get there. The thing that's interesting, the thing that's really, really interesting is when you take a look here at this field, specifically at the top 8. There are a shockingly shockingly few number of upsets that have to happen for the first ever 4-team playoff field to be the last ever 4-team playoff field. And if you remember all the way back to 2014, that was Alabama at 1, Ohio State at 4. That was, I believe, the Sugar Bowl. And then you have Oregon at 2, and then Florida State at 3. Those were the matchups all the way back in 2014. Now, I'm not saying that is the way that things are going to shape out, right? Like Alabama's going to be 1, Ohio State's going to be 4, and everything like that. I'm just saying there are a shockingly few number of upsets that would have to happen. Maybe you'd need Tennessee there to beat Georgia. Obviously, Alabama would need to win the SEC. You'd probably need someone other than Texas to win the Big 12. Oregon, of course, would have to beat Washington in the Pac-12 championship. And then Florida State's the easiest one here because they went out. Well, Ohio State, pretty easy there as well because they would just have to win out. But I find that crazy to believe that the first ever 14 playoff field could be the last ever 14 playoff field before we jump in to the 12-team era. So really, really think that, again, when you take a look at those top 8 teams and then you add Louisville there as well, those are the teams that can still make a run and still make their case to get into the college football playoff. I do believe that there's going to be a lot of chaos coming, though, in these next 2 weeks. So I would buckle up and prepare yourselves. Do think it's going to be a wild ride here towards the finish. But other than that, I think the committee's done a pretty solid job this year. Yes, you can argue there are some inconsistencies with the way that they're judging resumes and all things considered like that, because if you're going to go based off resume, well, then Washington should be above Michigan, Florida State should be above Michigan. You could even make the case why Texas and Alabama should be above Michigan. You make the case why Oregon is that. No, but I think the committee, for the most part here, got it right. I just have a couple teams flipped around, at least in my personal rankings. And again, not that my rankings hold any merit, but I think the committee has done a pretty solid job at ranking teams so far this season. Let's dive on into my college football playoff predictions. You see the lovely playoff bracket here on screen, and it hasn't changed much. I still got Georgia at number 1. They, of course, will pick the All-State Sugar Bowl. I still believe, now the SEC title game race has been closer, and I think that line is shrinking and shrinking. It will be Georgia and Alabama that will match up in the SEC championship game in Atlanta. Now, can Georgia be upset by Tennessee this week? Yes. Can Alabama be upset by Auburn? I mean, I think it's on the table, but I don't see it as highly likely in any sense at all. And then when you pair Georgia and Alabama together, I do think Georgia is the better team. They just showed that after they throttled Ole Miss this past week. Do believe they will end up getting that number 1 spot. Michigan, to me, also proved that they are the number 2 team in the country. Right now, I would pick them to beat Ohio State in the game, although that game is going to be incredibly close. And again, Michigan would be left with the Rose Bowl game. Still think Florida State is sitting here at number 3. I've had this team in my college football playoff field the entire way. They've looked like a college football playoff team, and yes, they have started slow in a lot of games, but as long as Florida State takes care of business and wins out, in all likelihood, Florida State is the team that we will see in the 4-team field of the college football playoff. And then my number 4 pick did change. So I will be honest, my philosophy was not consistent here from that past game or from that past video into this video. I've started to project outwards a little bit more, and with Michigan beating Ohio State, and with the way that I see that Washington-Oregon State game playing out, again, you can go look at that. That video is already on my channel. Oregon still has to play Oregon State there as well. I think Oregon's going to be able to beat the Oregon State Beavers. Preview for a video that is going to come next week. And I also believe that they are the better team in the Pac-12. I think they're playing better football. They're playing some of the best football in the country right now. Really, really close for me between the between the Oregon Ducks. My apologies to Ducks and Beaver fans everywhere. Really close for me between the Ducks and the Buckeyes to get that 4th spot. I do not believe Texas is going to get there. I think the Jonathan Brooks injury really does hurt them. Now, they may still be able to win out, but I do believe that Oregon, because they are above Texas in the rankings, will get that final spot. I love this Oregon Duck team. I think Bo Nix should be in New York as a Heisman contender. Really, really like that defense. They got a lot of good playmakers on that team. I like Oregon to get that 4th spot there in the college football playoff as I project things forward, which is what I'm going to do now moving forward here. Sort of project things outward the way I see the season playing out. So, but what I will say is my national semifinalists do not, or I should say my national championship teams have not changed. Georgia has really proved to me that they belong in the national championship, and then Michigan finally got that that resume building win against the Penn State Nittany Lions. And again, still think that Michigan is going to win the national championship. This is my prediction in the preseason. I have kept it all season long, and Michigan has shown me no reason to believe why they are not walking away with a national championship trophy. However, it's starting to become a little bit of a tougher decision for me because of the way that Georgia is playing that game. If it were to happen, and the national championship game is going to be very, very close. But I am still going to go with my preseason pick there in the Michigan Wolverines to take home the national championship trophy, even though Jim Harbaugh's not going to be coaching these final 2 games of the season, at least on game day, and who knows what else comes forward. But again, that number 4 spot is interesting. Now, can Florida State fall out? Yes. If you end up dropping a game, so let's say you end up dropping that game to Florida in the final week of the regular season, but you still beat Louisville in the ACC championship game. Still think there's going to need to be some chaos for Florida State to get in, even though they do have that win over the LSU Tigers. The win over Clemson doesn't look as good. They do have a win over Duke, but Duke is currently not ranked either. So it's going to be interesting to see if Florida State loses the game where they fall to. Right now, I think projecting forward, I think Oregon does get that 4th spot. I do think that they will be able to avenge their loss in the Pac-12 championship game if that is the inevitable matchup. And just projecting forward, the way I see the season playing out, I like Oregon to get that number 4 spot there in the college football playoff. Again, Georgia and Michigan, I think, are the staples at 1 and 2. I think those are the best 2 teams in the country right now. I think Ohio State, Oregon, Washington, Florida State kind of in that next tier. Those are the teams that I could see vying for 3 and 4. Texas you could put in there as well, but again, I think the injury to Jonathan Brooks really going to put a damper on a lot of things that Texas were hopeful for this year. Still can get into the college football playoff. Absolutely can the Texas Longhorns. So let's move forward here, quickly running through my New Year's 6 bowl game predictions because they have changed. There are changes here. I did move the Alabama Crimson Tide to the Goodyear Cotton Bowl. I did drop Ohio State out of my playoff field, so they are now in the Orange Bowl against, you can probably guess, the Louisville Cardinals. But the Alabama Crimson Tide did fall to the Cotton Bowl, where I have also put the Penn State Nittany Lions. So they have been in the Fiesta Bowl for quite some time, and I still see Penn State making the college football playoff. Look, when your only 2 losses on the season are to the Michigan Wolverines and to the Ohio State Buckeyes, now barring any sort of chaos from this Penn State team, I still fully expect this team to maybe get a top 10 ranking at the end of the season and be a team that is in a New Year's 6 bowl game. In all likelihood, you have Rutgers and Michigan State to close out the season. In all likelihood, you will finish out 10 and 2, and I believe that is well deserving, especially if both Michigan and Ohio State are somehow able to get into the college football playoff, deserving of a New Year's 6 bowl game spot. That's where I sit. Penn State. The Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl, we got a new team in here. Ole Miss was in here last week. I have dropped them out because what the committee has done is I think they've gotten it right. Now, if Ole Miss were to beat Georgia, I think they would have ultimately locked their spot in a New Year's 6 bowl game. However, Ole Miss maybe might need Missouri to lose one of these final 2 games here. Missouri has been a very, very impressive team so far this season, blowing out any predictions that I or anyone else had for this team, at least around most of the national media. Missouri has been a fantastic team to watch, and this team is absolutely deserving of a New Year's 6 bowl game appearance. I do believe it will be the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl if the season were to end today, and then the Tulane Green Wave would be there at 9-1 as the Group of 5 champions. And with all the results that happened this past week, with Air Force losing, with Fresno State losing, I think Tulane is by far and away that clear front runner to get the New Year's 6 bowl game spot as the Group of 5 champion. Now, again, who knows if this James Madison appeal gets approved, maybe that could change. But as it currently stands right now, Tulane is, in my opinion, far and away the best team in the Group of 5, and I know that there are some teams in the American Athletic that are going to have something to say about that as well. But Tulane, I do still sit in here as a New Year's 6 representative from the Group of 5. Let's dive on into the Capital One Orange Bowl. I teased this one just a little bit ago. The Louisville Cardinals, since I do have Florida State in the college football playoff field, if somehow Florida State were to drop out of the college football playoff field, they would be the team that would get into the Capital One Orange Bowl, but because I have Florida State in my playoff field, that belongs to the Louisville Cardinals. They are a top 10 side right now. They've been playing some really good football all year. Again, currently only sitting with that one lone loss. With that one lone loss. And Louisville has been a very, very fun, impressive team to watch all season long. Couple tricky games moving forward here. You got to go on the road, play Miami. You have to play Kentucky as well. But in all likelihood, I do see Louisville getting in to a New Year's Six bowl game. The Ohio State Buckeyes have pretty much locked their spot in a New Year's Six bowl game. They are 10-0. Now, if somehow they were to drop that game to Minnesota, then lose to Michigan, there probably is a possibility of them falling out. But I don't see them losing to the Minnesota Golden Gophers. And even if they were to lose that game to Michigan and not get into the college football playoff, Ohio State's absolutely a team that you are going to see in a New Year's Six bowl game this season. To me right now, that happens to be the Capital One Orange Bowl as a representative out of the Big Ten. Let's dive on in now to my final game. I've had this prediction for a couple of weeks here now, and that's the Texas Longhorns and Washington State Huskies. Not Washington State Huskies. Oh my goodness, I'm all over the place. I apologize to Husky and Cougar fans everywhere. The Washington Huskies. There we go. Currently sitting as the number 5 team, again, projecting forward. I do think Oregon State is going to upset them. Spoiler alert for that preview prediction video. Still suggest you go check that one out, though. I believe that Washington is a team that is just going to fall short of the college football playoff. Same thing with Texas in what should make for a top 10 showdown in the Verbo Fiesta Bowl. This game, if it happens, if it comes to fruition, is going to be a lot of fun. Now, Texas, I also believe, falls short of the playoffs. I do think there are some teams playing better football ahead of them, and that injury to Jonathan Brooks being out for the year is going to be devastating. Now, C.J. Baxter is a really solid option, but I don't think he's going to provide the sort of firepower that Jonathan Brooks did for this team. So we'll give you one final look here at the college football playoff field, my projected field as of this point. This is the projected field that I see a lot of people going with now, and it makes complete sense. Michigan beats Ohio State. In all likelihood, with the way things are trending, that would knock Ohio State out, because there's no way an 11-1 non-conference champion is going to get in over a 12-1 conference champ in the Oregon Ducks, a team that's playing some really good football right now. That's why I have them at number 4. But Georgia, Michigan, Florida State, as long as they win out, they're going to get in. Hey, that's going to do it here for this video. Remember to play hard, but tailgate harder. There's only one preview prediction that comes out today. 3 will come on Thursday. We'll get that out to you guys here in just a little bit. So have a good day, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.